on to the second chunk of the video of the 7th module that deals with Vygotsky's theory. After understanding the ecological systems theory as proposed by Yuri Bronfenbrenner, it becomes imperative to comprehend the socio-cultural theory proposed by Vygotsky. And its assumptions and beliefs is in similar terms with ecological theory. Vygotsky theory, though talks about the role of society and culture in a child's development, his viewpoint is more individualistic when compared to ecological theory. Vygotsky supports continuous development in the cognitive domain, which is in complete contradiction to the Piaget's assumption. He strongly believes that the cognitive skills of a child has its origin within the social relations and gets refined through the socio-cultural interactions to which the child is exposed to. At the end of this video, you will be able to recognize the socio-cultural contributions in the development of an individual, figure out the difference between what a child can learn by himself and what he can with help. The third is to identify the educational implications of socio-cultural theory in an early classroom setting. Vygotsky, a Russian psychologist, suggests that human learning is largely a social process that happens by means of interaction between an individual and the culture in which he or she lives. Let us understand the theory by comprehending its basic facts. The major concepts to understand are tools of intellectual adaptation, more knowledgeable other, which we call it as MKO. The third concept is zone of proximal development, and the fourth concept is about the levels of learning. Now let us look into each and every concept in detail. The first concept, tools of intellectual adaptation. Children are born with specific mental capacities and certain other biological constraints in their mind. The culture to which they belong to provides specific tools which he referred as tools of intellectual adaptation. These tools facilitate young children to use the possessed mental capacities in a way that is adaptive to their own culture. The basic mental capacities are referred to as elementary functions by Vygotsky. The four major mental functions are attention, sensation, perception, and memory. These mental functions, by means of interactions with the socio-cultural environment through the tools of intellectual adaptations, develop into more sophisticated and effective mental process called higher mental function. For example, memory is a mental function that is determined by biological factors, as you know. However, culture decides a type of strategy that the child uses to enhance his memory. A literate society teaches note-taking to enhance memory, whereas an illiterate or P-literate society learns by tying knots in a string, carrying bubbles, etc. to remember. Then the second concept is about more knowledgeable other. The tool of intellectual adaptation that varies from culture to culture has to reach the child through a skillful tutor for effective learning. The tutor more often is a parent or the teacher at an younger age. They provide verbal instructions through cooperative and collaborative dialogues. These dialogues in turn help the child in internalizing the information, and thereby they'll be able to guide or regulate their performance. For example, a young child, when given a puzzle for the first time, will not be able to solve it on his own. If the mother happens to sit with the child, describing and demonstrating the basic processes such as finding the edges first and even helping the child to locate a couple of pieces and put together with simultaneous encouragement and support, the child will find it so easy to solve the puzzle. Next time the child is given a new puzzle, he would work more independently. The skillful tutor is the mother in this example. And this mother is now referred to as the more knowledgeable other by Vygotsky. Thus, the more knowledgeable others are the people who have a better understanding or a higher ability level than the learner for a given task, process, or concept. A MKO can be a parent, can be a teacher, can be an older adult, a sibling, or even a peer, or even a child for an adult. The third concept is zone of proximal development. Now that it is well realized that the culture intervenes with the elementary process and converts the same into higher mental functions through MKOs, it is also important to measure the level of elementary mental process and its related level of higher mental functions for a given task at a given time exhibited by a given child. In other words, what a child can achieve independently and what a child can achieve with guidance has to be measured. The difference between these two levels is called the zone of proximal development. Consider the same situation of a child solving a puzzle. The child works on the puzzle as per his intellectual potential through the tools of intellectual adaptation and cultural interactions. The child is also influenced by MKOs either in the form of his mother or through watching videos on the same and learns to solve the puzzle. The difference between what the child can do on his own and what he can do with the help is called the zone of proximal development. But dear learners, do remember there is a level beyond this proximal development, what we call it as beyond the reach of the child. The fourth basic concept of Vygotsky theory is levels of learning. Hence, any learning happens only within the limit of EZPD, what we call it as zonal proximal development. Even within this limit, Vygotsky assumed that the child's learning happens at two levels, namely social level and personal level. Social level of learning is the first level that a child learns through socio-cultural interaction. The cognitive development that happens due to this learning is called as interpsychological. The second level is personal level of learning, which is the second level, and it gets reflected throughout his life. The cognitive development that happens at this level is called intrapsychological. In other words, a child's behavior and thinking pattern alter as a result of interaction with the society and its related culture. After looking into the basic concepts of Vygotsky theory, let us understand the principles of the sociocultural theory. With the following concepts of Vygotsky theory, let us look into the summing up of the 5 major principles. First principle is child construct his own knowledge. Though the acquisition of knowledge depends on the individual potential, every child needs help to do so. Second principle is learning needs mediation. The mediational process, like tools of intellectual adaptation, gains significance in the process of learning. The third principle is learning happens at 2 levels. The learning happens first at the social level and then extends to the individual level. That is interpsychological learning and intrapsychological learning that leads to the overall cognitive development of a child. Fourth principle is social context is significant. When a child gets exposed to a proper social environment, the rate of cognitive development is faster. Fifth principle is learning happens within the zone of proximal development. Zone of proximal development is a measure of how much a child learns from the society and understands what is beyond his reach. And now into the major concept of educational implications of socio-cultural theory. Vygotsky socio-cultural theory, of course, has got contemporary applications in the real classroom setting. 2 major applications are scaffolding and reciprocal teaching. What is scaffolding? Scaffolding is a concept that offers structure and support to a child in the process of learning, just as support given while constructing a building. Scaffolding is erected to provide support to a new structure that is built. Once a building is complete, the scaffolds are removed and the building can stand alone. The same philosophy is applied to children in their process of learning. Scaffolding very well relates to the concept of zone of proximal development of Vygotsky, and it is considered to be the popular method in early childhood education. For example, a child has difficulty in answering to the question, what is the opposite of the term down? Maybe on his own it's not possible for him to answer. Then the teacher can apply the concept of scaffolding by providing 3 to 4 answers to choose from, thereby the child opts a right answer independently. Let us look into one more example of scaffolding. The task of a child is now to draw a square. How to make a draw? The adult trainer who understands that as per the developmental principle, a child should know to draw vertical lines, then the horizontal lines, later the square. Hence, the adult trainer should support the child in gaining mastery over drawing vertical lines first, after which the support should shift to horizontal lines. Once a child can exhibit these two skills, even after the scaffold or support is removed, then the child should be supported to draw a square. Hence, scaffolding is a concept that explains an adult supportive role in solving a problem, carrying out a task, or achieving a goal that is beyond the ability of a child. The second implication is reciprocal teaching. It's a widely used instructional activity that happens through interactions between a teacher and the students regarding a concept or a skill or any segment of learning. Though the effectiveness of reciprocal teaching is scientifically proved among children in the 7th standard, the concept, though not in its true sense, can be used among preschoolers too. For example, when the children are asked to color an apple with leaves, the facilitator, after giving a whole group instruction, can make them sit within smaller groups and start the task. The facilitator can reach out to a smaller group and observe them interact with the color of the crayon that they perceive to be right in coloring the apple and the crayon to color the leaves. By observing, the facilitator would understand their basic knowledge and might continue asking them certain questions like why the red color is chosen, and even pose certain questions that confuses them like why not color it with yellow. The dialogues between the children and the facilitator would bring out clarity in the young minds on the concept of apple. Now, to conclude, a part of the module that covers a socio-cultural theory of Lev Vygotsky with a clear description of its principle is elaborated to you. It also detailed you on how a young child constructs his own knowledge at social and personal level through mediation by more knowledgeable others. 8 also had clearly explained to you the content or skill that is beyond the reach of the child employing zone of proximal development. The educational implications of this theory also gains much significance in today's early classroom setting. Thank you. Bye.